Now, Jonathan Taylor, I've been hard on, but he had some good comments that I have come to respect from. I believe he made these comments on Friday, and I love it. I love everything he has to say here. This guy clearly wants to win. Okay, on a Colts team that, guys have been asked this question a lot of, what are you chasing this year? And it's like, I want respect, or I just want to have a good year, or whatever it is. Not Jonathan Taylor. This guy clearly wants to win.
Number one, you just got to chase a championship. For me, I think that's for me personally, and I'm sure as a team, everyone is. That's just something that I don't have on my resume yet. That I've seen a lot of people celebrate, and I've spoken to some people who, seeing the confetti fall, and it's a feeling that they can't describe. So I want that feeling too. I'm sure the rest of the team does as well.
You spoke about the rest of the running back room and what you saw from them last year and during camp so far. With Zach Moss now gone this year, are you expecting to have that increased workload that you kind of saw earlier in your career, or did you kind of like the split that you got to have last season?
I'm expecting to do whatever Shane asked me to do, because whatever it takes for us to win a championship, that's what I'm willing and able to do. Like I said, that's something that I haven't added to my resume yet, and I'm just going to try to do my part in order to make that happen and to make it a reality.
What about this team makes you think that you guys can win a championship?
Number one, I think it's just the advantage that we have with a lot of the same guys coming back on offense and defense. So a lot of times when you have a team that can come together, camp is where you kind of come together and you mesh. Well, when you have the same team that you had last year, you're really just building on the same bond that you guys built in the previous year. So I just think if we can use that to our advantage, I think something really special will happen this year.
That was Jonathan Taylor talking about winning a Super Bowl. He clearly wants to win one, and I've been critical of Jonathan Taylor. I think he's a little overrated, but, something can be good and still be overrated. That's very much a thing. This statement, though, not overrated. Love everything that he said here. Okay, sometimes you hear people talk, and they're just clearly saying what needs to be said. It's lip service. It's like, yeah, we want to win the Super Bowl this year. And all, DeForest Buckner, he had a statement like that. He sounded incredibly bored when he gave it. But here, Jonathan Taylor, adamant. You can feel it in his voice. He is engaged in this, and he wants to win at a high level for this Colts team this season, which is great. And I think that him sidestepping a question about backup running backs and how many carries he's going to get to further emphasize it shows me that he legitimately wants to win. Okay, once again, I think he's a tad bit overrated, but that's okay. You can be good and still be a little overrated, but I have an issue with the last thing that he said there. I think his logic is slightly flawed. His idea that because everyone is back means that this team can win a Super Bowl is just wrong. It's wrong. Team chemistry, it's important. Okay, it is, but you have to have more than the power of friendship to win a championship in anything. Okay, just look at the NBA this last year. I would argue that the New York Knicks had the best team chemistry of any other team in the NBA, and they didn't even make it to the conference finals. They didn't. You know who, look, the Celtics and the Mavs threw their team together just before the All-Star break, or just before the trade deadline. They're learning as they went along, and they look at that. They're in the NBA finals. Like, is team chemistry important? Yes. But it's not everything. Bad team chemistry can really ruin a team, but I don't think great team chemistry makes teams play much better. It doesn't. Like, you have to have more than just team chemistry in order to win. Like, when it comes to, the NBA, I'll keep riding with this analogy. Like, this next season, I think a lot of people are excited about the Knicks because they've got 4 guys from Villanova that are all good friends, and the team chemistry is going to be high and all that kind of stuff. I tell you right now, I'm not picking the Knicks to come out of the East. I'm picking the Boston Celtics because they're the most talented team in the East. Yes, team chemistry is important, but you got to be talented. And this Colts team went 9-8 last year, and you're bringing back all the dudes that helped you go 9-8. Something tells me you're not going to be much better. Okay, and this is logic that I hear all the time in college football. And, as that is quickly approaching as well, you're going to hear people talk about Oklahoma State, who's returning 20 of 22 starters from last year, which is unheard of in college sports. Like that is clearly a program in a good place if they're having that many guys willing to come back. They went 10-4 last year, and they're potentially going to make the college football playoff and win the Big 12 because Texas and Oklahoma are no longer in the Big 12. But here's the thing. Oklahoma State's not going to win the title because they're bringing back a whole bunch of dudes. They aren't. You say, well, Jonathan, why not? Because Ohio State, Alabama, and Georgia all exist, and they're all more talented than Oklahoma State. Okay, yes, team chemistry. It's an important thing, but that's something that gets developed over the course of the season. Jonathan Taylor said it in that clip right there. Teams mesh and kind of build that chemistry during training camp, which is happening right now. Team chemistry is great. It's important. If you don't have it, it can derail your season. But at some point, you have to have the talent to win. And when I look at this Indianapolis Colts roster, especially the back end of that defense, they just don't have the talent to beat the Bills or the Chiefs. They just don't have it. They don't have it to beat the Bengals. They just have a lack of talent. And you have to have talented players at some point if you want to win a Super Bowl. And Chris Ballard has plenty of opportunities to go out and add talented players. And for some reason, he won't do it. Meanwhile, Tennessee Titans are like, we will take every talented player that we can get. The Tennessee Titans signed Quandre Diggs, free safety, a major position of need for the Indianapolis Colts. They go out. The Titans signed Quandre Diggs. While I will defend Chris Ballard's drafting, especially along the defensive line, I will not, under any circumstance, defend his lack of aggressiveness in signing free agents. Aggressive wins, man. Aggressive wins in sports. The 49ers are hyper aggressive. They go out. They look to add players. They trade up in the draft. They make trades during the season. They traded for Chase Young at the end of last year. Okay? Aggressive wins. When the Los Angeles Rams won their Super Bowl, they traded away a ton of first-round picks for Jalen Ramsey and Matthew Stafford. Like, they went out, they were aggressive, and they brought in good players. And, you know, this might be shocking to some people, but if you're aggressive and you bring in more good players to your team, then you are likely to win more games. Okay? You have to be aggressive in going and acquiring talent. And that is simply a concept that Chris Ballard just can't seem to grasp. Okay, while Chris Ballard has sat on his hands, this hyper, ultra aggressive Tennessee Titans front office that wants things to work with Will Levis has been aggressive this offseason, and they've brought in 7 players. They've brought in 7 players that are going to contribute to their ability to win this year. While Chris Ballard has done nothing, the Tennessee Titans have added Calvin Ridley, a player that the Colts should have tried to add. Tyler Boyd, a player that I wouldn't have been upset if the Colts had added. Chidobe Awuzie, a starting corner, definitely a player that the Colts should have looked to add. Tony Pollard, that's a good backup running back right there. Lloyd Cushenberry, who's a center. L'Jarius Sneed, who's one of the best corners in the NFL. Jamal Adams, and now Quandre Diggs, 2 guys that are really going to beefing up the back end of that secondary. All of these players that the Titans have added this offseason have made them better. That is 7 players that the Titans have added that are going to help them win games. Meanwhile, I look over at this Indianapolis Colts offseason, and they drafted, a couple rookies that are going to help, and Adonai Mitchell and Laiatu Latu, and they added Raekwon Davis, who hasn't even practiced yet. You got to do something at some point, Chris Ballard. You can't just sit on your hands, right? I get it. You want to sign your own, and I understand that to a certain degree. Okay, like if you have a guy in your building that you believe is just as good as a free agent, then cool. Don't sign that free agent. Keep the guy that you drafted. Keep the guy that is familiar with, the team and the organization and the coaches. That makes sense to me. But when there are players available on the market that are better than what you currently have and you can afford them, then you should probably go and get them.